Depreciating Nepalese currency. Shanker Singh. To put it bluntly, the rate at which two different currencies are exchanged with each other is called the exchange rate. Simply put, it is the valuation of one nation's currency based on another nation's currency. When you travel abroad, you have to buy the currency of that country to spend there. This process is like buying an item. In principle, the selling price of the same item should be the same in different countries. This is because the exchange rate manages the original value of one country's currency with another. Generally, there are two ways to exchange one currency for another. One fixed pegged rate, fixed exchange rate, and the other floated rate, converted exchange rate. The exchange rate is determined and managed by the central bank of each state. The exchange rate is determined by the value of the world's major currencies. Exchange rate change is determined on the basis of market demand and supply. In other words, such a rate can be called self-correcting. This is because of the diversity of supply and demand in the market. In a simple reality, no currency is completely stable or unchanged. In a stable country, market pressures can sometimes force such a rate change. Sometimes the black market can grow if the local currency reflects a different price than the other fixed currency. In such a case, the central bank is compelled to devalue or devalue its currency according to the value of its currency, which is being maintained outside the official market. This action of the central bank makes it easier to reduce or stop the black market. Even in a country with a changing rate, the central bank can sometimes intervene in the market to maintain stability and reduce inflation. However, in the global environment, central banks have rarely done so. The recent devaluation of the Nepalese currency against the US dollar is likely to have an impact on the country's economy and the growth rate for the current fiscal year. As Nepal is an import-based economy, the devaluation of the domestic currency against the US dollar will also make imports more expensive and affect the country's inflation. The exchange rate of the Nepalese rupee has fallen as the Indian rupee, which is linked to the country's currency, has come under pressure after the global financial market slump signaled that the world is heading for an economic downturn due to the corona. Currently, the Nepali rupee has become the weakest in history. The Nepali rupee has been weak so far as the US dollar has appreciated. Recently, the Nepal Rashtra Bank has fixed the buying rate of US dollar at 122.84 paise and the selling rate at 123.44 paise. The US currency has been steadily strengthening lately. The Nepal Rashtra Bank, NRB, says that the US economy is getting stronger and the recent US-Russian war has affected the US dollar. Demand for the dollar has been high globally lately. This is due to high demand. The Nepalese currency has a stable exchange rate with the Indian rupee. Therefore, for some time now, the Indian rupee has been depreciating against the dollar. A few days ago, the Russian ruble depreciated by 30% against the dollar. The value of the currency has fallen since Western nations imposed sanctions on Russia and imposed various economic sanctions on Russia. The ruble has depreciated since banks in some countries were banned from using the SWIFT international payment system. The European Union, the United States and its NATO allies have imposed various economic sanctions to isolate Russia. This depreciation of the Nepalese rupee against the US dollar will put the import-based Nepalese economy at risk. If our economy is export-oriented, the strengthening of US dollar will be an opportunity for Nepal. As Nepal's economy is heavily dependent on imports, a weaker rupee against the US dollar has a detrimental effect on our economy. Weak currencies make imports more expensive and also create inflationary pressures on the economy. Similarly, the country will incur a loss by repaying the interest and principal of the foreign loan in US dollars. In the last few days, the devaluation of Nepali currency against the US dollar has become a matter of great concern to the general public. When we speak of maintaining foreign reserves for the purpose of filling imbalances in foreign trade, we mean imbalances arising from the general pattern of trade. The Nepali rupee has been depreciating continuously for the past few months. Lately, the Nepalese currency has been depreciating rapidly against the US dollar. This continuous devaluation process is not due to the rise in Nepal's inflation rate, interest rate, or Nepal's GNP. Instead, it is simply because the Nepalese rupee is pegged to Indian currency. Exchange rate depreciation is the depreciation of the exchange rate, that is, the external value of one currency in relation to another currency. Depreciation of exchange makes domestic goods and services cheaper for residents and makes imports more expensive. A devaluation is a devaluation of the exchange rate by any official order. It can be related to either the currency of all countries or gold or the currency of some selected countries. Currencies in South Asia have come under intense pressure and have fallen sharply against the US dollar. Theoretically, the immediate effect of the current devaluation of the Nepalese currency is reflected in the expansion of exports and the contraction of imports, which tends to reduce the unfavorable balance of payments. To find out the effects of devaluation, some economists think that it is necessary to examine the elasticity of external demand for the country's exports, which is the popular demand for the country's exports, which is called the elastic approach. In Nepal's special environment, demand elasticity does not work. In this context, it can be said that the success of the devaluation will depend on the domestic demand for imports, and the non-domestic demand for exports must be quite elastic, which does not apply to the desired extent in the case of Nepal. Depreciation adversely affects some balance of payments items, such as for the repayment of foreign debt when these are expressed in the national currency. Overall, Nepali exports need to be accelerated in volume, while imports need to be sharply reduced, which is not possible due to increasing imports of consumer goods, development and construction materials. In this way, the poor people of Nepal will have to suffer the pain of this devaluation. High inflation, expansion of money supply, expansionary monetary policy and sufficient funds for investment in the market will increase the consumption of the common man, it will increase the price, increase the consumption of foreign goods, more foreign currency will have to be spent on imports. There will be low mobilization and return on investment. In such a scenario, the country's economy is gradually weakening, due to rising fuel prices and high consumption. Discussions have been going on for some time now about the need for Nepal to devalue its exchange rate with the Indian rupee in order to increase exports at a time when there is a trade deficit of billions of rupees. But most economists warn that devaluation can do more harm than good. As Nepal does not have much to export, even if the price of Nepali goods is cheaper for foreigners, there is a situation where there is no significant increase in exports. For Nepalis who depend on foreign imports for everything from food to petrol, that cost can be very painful.